is Pamela Quyle. She's going to talk to you a little bit about
Quyle Kilns.
Quyle Kilns. After all of the presentations, I really would like to invite you all to go down to the art gallery and see the studio. Walkthrough Pam will be there to answer your
Mr. Brice
questions.
in it.
Amazing artwork. Beautiful things. So if you haven't been there, this is a real treat for you to go in and see what's available.
Okay, so my sister and my brother-in-law Stuart have managed the pottery for years, and then they are in charge of everything that's organic, and that's the way I talk to people about it. They do everything that's wine, music, events. I just take care of our pottery at this point. Our pottery, Stuart came in years ago when we were mining clay on a daily basis and producing around 700 tons a year that we were selling to about 18 different suppliers and probably 200 school districts. So things slowed down as the economy changed. So 15 years ago, I ended up, as they built the winery business, I took over more and more of the pottery and ended up driving a little air truck to the Bay Area for some years. I closed down the clay manufacturing end basically with COVID. 150 schools that didn't order. Our distributors were all over the place. And we have 2 10-wheelers that we couldn't run in the state of California anymore. I mean, we got a little complicated. And so we shut that down. And we developed then, my studio partner and I, really developed our classroom and pottery classes. So we are running about 25 students full time, classes 6 days a week, and trying to actually create functional studio potters, not sip and paint. God knows we drink, but that's beside the point. So anyway, we're actually trying to make real working people. We have pledged at about 15 family potters who now have their own home studios and are not my competition. But they're all friends, and so we all work together. So we have we took over the what was the loading dock and roofed it in 2007, 2010. Created classrooms there. So our building is kind of like the Winchester Mystery House of Police. It's like 6,000 square feet of little tiny weird places. Someday I'll get all the roofs to quit leaking. In the meantime, then, I have these wonderful art people who show up in my life. And so there's a wonderful woman, Robin Maudlin, who has been doing mosaics around town. She was the person who put the beautiful mosaics on the outside of the bathrooms in Murphy's Park and some of the downtown buildings. And I said, ooh, and she said, ooh. And so she has now taken our sweatshop, which was just this big basalt brick half underground building, and she's mosaicing all the walls. And then she's creating another beautiful mosaic outside that is a female figure that is actually named for my grandmother Catherine and my sister Catherine. And so Catherine will be finished soon, but she is my grandmother's broken dishware, which my sister Kathy probably would have inherited. Anyway, we broke the dishware, we're making art out of it, so that's a project. We've been doing mosaics around the building. So we have, as I said, 25 great students. The building is a little eccentric. You're welcome to come down after my sister and brother-in-law talk about all the things that they have built here, because all of this is done. I just inherited that building. Anyway, and so they're all doing amazing things with music and theater and Shakespeare and circus camp. And I'm doing pottery, but I'm kind of groovy too. So I'll give you back to them. And after you finish with them, come down and visit me. Okay? Good. Bye.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dolores. Oh, and it's very loud. Is it that loud? It's okay? Well, I'm going to go back into history a little bit. It sounds so loud. The history we know that this was homesteaded in 1900 by a fellow named Fenton Davis. We have the original homestead deed signed by President McKinley in 1900. Fenton Davis only kept it for a year, and he gifted it, a deed of gift, to Clara Martell in 1901. Clara Martell sold it to Durant Brice in 1915 and sold it to my grandparents, Kitty and Paul Quyle, May 1st, 1941. And we have all those wonderful old deeds that just go on and on and on and on. My grandparents and probably all of our grandparents had really interesting lives, I think. My grandfather, Paul Sr., joined the U.S. Army and was sent to China to protect American missionaries during the Boxer Rebellion. When he returned to the States, he got a job at the Stockton Police Department, but he'd learned enough Chinese in China to become the liaison between the Chinese community and the Stockton Police Department. It got him into a lot of great parties. He also helped capture,
Jake Flegel.
there's a whole book about it, the Flegel Gang. These were horrible, horrible men that killed people, robbed banks, had hideouts all over the United States. He helped catch them and got a cash reward that my dad said he used to buy the property. Now, that's up for debate. But you can read, I mean, these were really, really horrible people. My grandfather, Kitty, survived the San Francisco earthquake as a little girl. And then later in Stockton, besides raising my dad, she also raised miniature horses, and she had a riding rink in Mount Diablo. She was quite a party and dance girl. When they moved up here, it was the Murphy's Quadrille Club. It was really very famous, and people came, like John's parents. Where's John? Morse. Where are you, John? Your parents came all the way from...
I danced with Kitty when I was 12.
Okay, there we go. The Quadrille Club was actually had the state championship for years here in Murphy's, and they danced at what it was the Kinney Ranch, which is now, what's the name?
Indian Rock.
Indian Rock Vineyard. And pardon?
The Adams.
It was the Adams Ranch, and Mrs. Adam left it to Fred Kinney. Fred was very generous, and his sister Bertha, they would take Pam, my sister, up. Bertha would take her up into her boudoir and put powder on her and talk. Anyway, they were lovely people. They gave my sister a lot of books. When they moved here, my grandfather became deputy sheriff here, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Murphy's Pokey behind the hotel. And I remember my grandpa and me cleaning out the Pokey because he was getting it ready for the next overnight guest. He didn't want to drive some drunk guy all the way to San Andres, and probably didn't want to do any paperwork. So we'd sweep it out and shake there was a cot, there was a pot to pee in, there was a water, there was a little glass amber candlestick holder, and that's the thing I remember the most because the sun must have hit it just right. It was just beautiful. My grandparents, Kitty and Paul, were very community minded. They helped build the park. And my grandma Kitty worked many years organizing the Murphy's Homecoming Parade. She spent hours handwriting letters to organizations all over the state. And I think she was most proud of all the beautiful horses with their beautiful saddles, silver saddles, and all those fancy riders. My dad, Paul Jr., grew up in Stockton, attended College of the Pacific, and earned a degree in marine biology. Then he really fell in love teaching school. He fell in love with my mom, and he fell in love with ceramics, pottery, and clay production. My parents met at Stockton High School, where they were both teaching. My mom had joined the Marines in World War II. On the GI Bill, she went to college, got a degree in art and a teaching credential, and that's where they met. They moved here in 1954 when I was 1, and they started Quyle Kilns Pottery. Mom was a fantastic watercolor painter, produced probably 300,000 pieces of pottery in her career here. She just loved doing what she did. She did it every day. I spent my teenage years riding my horse on the back roads and learning letterpress printing. We had a little print shop here, and I did a lot of printing for the schools, and a lot of work for, you may remember, Dr. Ben Smith and his wife Dutton Smith. They were very influential in my life. They were neighbors here. Dutton was very involved with the American Field Service, and I printed lots of things for her for the American Field Service. And then she got me involved with the Calaveras Big Trees Association, which she was a founding member with her husband. So 51 years ago, they asked me to draw the logo for the Calaveras Big Trees Association, and I also printed all their membership cards, their letterheads, their stationery, and the group made me the first honorary charter member of the Big Trees Association, and I think at this point I'm the only surviving member of the original group. I do feel a very strong connection to the mother of the forest at Big Trees because that is why Mr. Brice came to California. He saw the bark that was taken from, it was at the Crystal Palace, and he saw the bark of the tree, and he came to see that.
In New York.
In New York. He was a trained Shakespearean actor. He came to California. He camped in the park, and then he bought the property here. And he was quite a entrepreneur. He did all kinds of, he dried mushrooms, and he sold those to the delicatessens in Stockton. He collected moss, and they used it for pillow stuffing. He made telephone poles. He had 7 little cabins in the back that he rented that were just 2 little room shacks. What else did he
Peppermint School. He built a peppermint school.
He built the, okay, well, I didn't even know that.
I have that one.
But I don't know, to me, the Big Tree State Park really is the first and most important tourist attraction in the state of California. People came from all over the world, from Spain, from Portugal. The trees at Kew Garden in England came from Calaveras Big Trees. Trees that my uncle researched are growing on the grounds in Madrid that were taken back. Trees in, I've been to New Zealand where the gold miners took our trees to New Zealand and planted them. And they all came from this grove. And people came from all over the world. You could get there on public transportation from San Francisco. You took the ship to Stockton. You took the stagecoach from Stockton through Milton to the Murphy's Hotel. I've been told it was a 13-hour trip. Is that right? Does anyone want to?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A bouncing 13 hours, and then you took the stage up to the park. So, it's really part of my life. I mean that whole story of if he hadn't seen that, who knows what my life would have been.
Brice Station was a stage stop.
Yeah, Brice Station was a stage stop on the way up to Big Trees. Okay, I'm changing the subject. How many of you ever rafted the Stanislaus? Okay. How many went fishing at Camp 9? There must be some people there. Does anybody remember the duck bar fig? Oh, it's so quiet. The duck bar fig was a duck bar, and it was supposedly the largest fig in California. It was near Camp 9. I think it was downstream, and it was on a sandbar, and it was so big it took up supposedly an acre of size. It was flooded and killed in 1970 when they built the dam. But a lady friend of mine named Vera Armstrong, who was a World War II Ukrainian survivor, lovely lady, her and her husband Bill owned the Chevron gas station at the intersection in Angels Camp of Old 4 and 49. And they had, and this is the 1960s, they had a small mining claim at Camp 9, and Vera took cuttings of the duck bar fig. She gave me 2 potted plants in the 1970s, and one is growing in front of the tasting room. And I do take cuttings of that, and I give them to old river rafters and anybody else that wants a duck bar fig that remembers sitting under the duck bar fig and having lunch. So that's kind of a cool, it's the daughter, it's not the tree, but it's the daughter of the duck bar fig. We also have Hetch Hetchy peaches here that a friend gave me, a peach tree from Hetch Hetchy, and because it's an heirloom tree, you can plant the seeds, and I have about 30 Hetch Hetchy peaches. They were made famous by Alice Waters of Chez Panisse in Berkeley, who says they're the best peaches in the entire world. And to change the subject again, where were you in 1962? Okay, I was 9 years old, and I was at Murphy's Grammar School. Stu went to a 2-room schoolhouse in Zamora, California, which is north of Woodland, a little teeny town, little farm town. He remembers October probably 15th of 1962, because the moms were dropping off their kids, and it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they were all trying to not scare their kids. They're all whispering, are we going to make it? So it was Kennedy versus Khrushchev. U.S. missiles were in Turkey, and the Soviet missiles were going into Cuba. and people were building fallout shelters. Between 1961 and 1965, people in the U.S. built over 200,000 fallout shelters. The government built 95,000 marked and stocked public shelters. And my father, Paul Jr., decided that we were in the fallout range from an attack on San Francisco. So he started, but never finished, thanks to Kennedy's negotiations with Khrushchev, a fallout shelter, which we made into the tasting room about 20 years ago. To make a short story long, I'm really good at that. No, just wine. That's probably, what do we do now? We do a lot of things here. We do a lot of fundraisers here. So this year alone, we've hosted a fundraiser for Indivisible. We've had weddings. We have music concerts. Murphy's Creek Theater children workshops. We had 2 weeks of workshops. The Sierra Circus children's workshops. In a month, we're having the Arnold Angels fundraiser. In the past, we've had the Red Hat Ladies. We've had Calaveras Mentoring. Back when we had a museum, we had a fundraiser for the museum. We have stargazing nights. We have music in the park. And we also have woofers. And woofing stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. These lovely, three gals back there are woofers. And we've hosted probably 150 woofers in the last 12 years. Kids and young adults and older adults come and live on the farm. We have berries, we have grapes to work on. I try to teach them a little about just farming and farm life. And that's what we do here. And Stu's going to talk a little bit about the Old Gulch fire.
Hi, I'm Stu Mast. Dolores and I will celebrate 50 years of marriage next year. So, yeah. And if anybody asks how we managed to do it so long, I just say tolerance. In August of '92, the Old Gulch fire started on a Sunday night. We were having a barbecue on my in-laws' patio, and we could see the smoke from Old Gulch from here, and it kept coming, and by Wednesday it came through the property here. But we had time to prepare for it, and I spent those 3-4 days on a bulldozer, mostly removing manzanita from the top of this hill, and just trying to build a buffer around here. Anyhow, we lost our entire forest. Most of the trees you see out there, Tanner Brothers came in after the fire. Fortunately, we had done some selective logging the spring before the fire, and so all the permits were still active, so they could immediately come in and salvage the timber, and we harvested 1 million more feet of timber out of here. And then we were lucky enough to get into the state program where they paid for the reforestation, and we replanted 22,000 little trees out there. And then just last August, we got on another program where 2 big excavators came in and masticated and thinned the forest, and so got rid of the brush that had grown up over the last 30 years. But let's see where I'm going with this. In the genesis of the vineyard, I'm a farm boy from the Sacramento Valley, and I always thought at 3,300 feet here, this is too high an elevation to grow grapes. But in the spring after the forest fire, Cabernet grower from the Napa Valley named John Baritelle was a friend of a neighbor, and John came over here and said, I'm looking at your hillside along the highway here, and there's no reason in the world you can't grow premium Cabernet here. And I said, it's too high in elevation. He says, no, don't plant Zinfandel or Chardonnay. They'll push out their buds too early in the spring. But the Bordeaux varieties, the Cabernets and Merlots, they push out it in mid-May, and they avoid most of those April frosts. He says, I'll tell you anything you want to know about growing good grapes, but don't screw around. So he was my mentor. And he took Dolores and I under his wing and said, okay, this is where you get your vines, this is the trellis system to use, this is where you get your irrigation. And so for the first couple of years, we just really leaned on him. And I knew very little about winemaking back then. I had made a little bit of, my roommates and I at Chico State had made a barrel of Barbera, and it was terrible because we let it oxidize, but we learned that the hard way. But I started out selling grapes to, John Baritelle was connected with a couple wineries in Napa, and so we were selling grapes to them, and I'm selling to Black Sheep and Milliere here in Murphy's. And about 3 years into growing grapes, another fellow showed up named Bill Beasy, and Bill had been an IBM engineer, and he'd recently retired to Arnold, and he said, I've been making home wine for 40 years, can I buy a ton of your fruit? I said, sure, and his whole family showed up and picked the grapes, and then invited Dolores and I to have dinner with them, and we started making home wine with them. And a year or so into that, we entered a bunch of home competitions, but one night in particular at Doug and Marie Josie's house, there was 105 wines being judged, and of the top 7 winning wines, 5 of them were grapes from my vineyard. So Bill came to me that night and said, okay, I got the startup money, tell me what you want to do. You want a loan, you want a partnership? So we decided to start an LLC with a stipulation that once he got his money back, he would step out of the business. So we were partners and got all the commercial licensing, and like I said, he'd been making home wine for 40 years, and being an engineer, he took copious notes on everything. We had 40 years worth of notes on his winemaking, and so I really leaned on him to learn the process, and then I went to UC Davis and took all the extension classes I could get, and we became a commercial winery here about 20 years ago, and it's paid the bills here, and I can't think of where I'd rather live or what I'd rather be doing. And then we've evolved into this space up here where we're doing what we're doing tonight, and having concerts and weddings, and it's, I thank Dolores' grandparents every day for having the foresight to buy this 100 acres of land. So thank you for being here tonight and listen to our tales.
Hi, I'm Pam Quyle. We're at Quyle Kilns Pottery in Murphy's. I'd like to introduce you to my studio partners, Amanda Mall, who teaches classes here, and Robin Modron, who does our mosaic projects. So, if you haven't been here yet, we've been waiting for you. This is our 71st year doing business in Murphy's. And we've done a lot of different things. So we have run a pottery, a mining operation, clay manufacturing, dishware manufacturing, and presently we're teaching classes. So we have about 25 full-time students now. They keep us really busy and on our toes. Amanda's in charge of all those students. She's my boss in that area. And then we also have a fairly good-sized gallery, and we are showing and hosting 5 different potters and 3 sculptors. And so we have an amazing variety of different types of work here from just fabulous people. So this Memorial Day weekend will be our 71st year doing business in Murphy's. I'm really proud of that. It's an old, not many companies can say that. And it's my grandparents bought the property in the 40s. My parents moved their business here in 1954. So here we are now, 2025, and we're still chugging along, which is great. So I'd like to have you come into my showroom, take a look at some of the pieces that are here on a regular basis with our regular artists, and then talk to you also about the mosaic projects that Robin's been doing in what was once our sweatshop, is now becoming one of the prettiest places imaginable with her mosaic art. And so we'll look at Amanda's studio and where she teaches classes, and our funky old building. And so let's go. So you Calaveras County kids that grew up and went to Calaveras High School may very well have taken a pottery class from Jim Bass. I took a class from him in 1969. Well, Jim is still alive and well, and I sell his work. And you should come and see what your old teacher did, because he's amazing. Just so much fun for me to have a connection with this potter for 54 years now. I'm blessed. I have a sculpture from a woman who's in her 90s who lives in Murphy's. I have wonderful bright colored pieces that are from a fellow who lives in Turlock, but he taught at Stanislaus State and Modesto Junior College. Then I also have fabulous pottery from a local man. This is Tim Hanrahan, and he makes beautiful pieces where the crystals are actually grown while the glaze is molten. It's a very unusual technique and just super fun. Behind here, and scattered around a lot of the rest of the shop, is a potter whose name is Marcus Dukotsky. And Marcus presently teaches at Chabot College, and I'm his gallery. And I'm very lucky to do this. The work here is work from June and Bill Vaughn from Tuolumne County. And they both taught at Columbia Junior College at different times. This work was out at Ironstone, but they've asked me if I'd be willing to represent them here in Calaveras County, and I went, of course. So we call this work tribal rather than, it's not American Indian work, it's not Polynesian, it's not African, it's just elegant. And so really fine artists, and I'm really happy to represent them. So I'm not always sure where I should put work, but we also do, so most of the work that we've produced over the last 70 years is functional, food safe, kitchenware, dishware. But about 15 years ago, I decided that it was okay for us to start looking at art and pottery as fine art rather than just strictly craft. And so many of the folks that are showing with us now are doing work that is not functional. It is just elegant or beautiful. So we fire in the raku style, which is a Japanese technique. We fire pieces in a barrel, and we use cow manure as our main flammable material, and the cow manure literally colors the outside of the pots. And so I've had some pretty funny jokes going around of my friends following and picking up cow pies for me. Thank you, Bitsy Lyons. Anyway, so we have different techniques for different things. There's mostly functional, but also strictly ornamental too. So just for the fun of it, I really like to show folks and tourists that come in the way we looked in 1954. My grandfather and grandmother offered my parents a house, a horse barn, 100 acres, and a babysitter if they wanted to quit their teaching jobs in the Central Valley, move up here and start a pottery. And they went, uh-huh. And so they started out with this structure, and this structure was 5 underground rooms that were stalls for my grandfather's horses when he did all the search and rescue for Calaveras County, and everything else was the paddock area. And this doorway is now this doorway, and we keep adding on, but this was how we looked in 54, 1955. 1955, we were a little further along. We started to get the roof on. My grandfather was blacksmithing parts to hold the building together. We still have that truck. Here we were in 1960, and this is basically what it looked like when I was a kid. And there was a big tower here with a diesel tank, and that's what my father was using to fire his kiln until we got neighbors, and diesel smoke became something of an issue. And so we went to electric firing at that time. We've added on, we started out with a 1948 section, we added a 54, a 55, a 56, 61, 62, 70, 75, 80, 85 is this room, 90, 95, 2000, 2010 additions. Just grandfathering onto the building as we could. So I mentioned that originally there'd been a horse barn here, and my grandfather had retired as a detective in Stockton, moved up here, took on deputy sheriff, and kept the county posse horses and bloodhounds here. So he built 5 stalls that were underground so that his horses would be warm in the winter, cool in the summer, and if you had to take a horse out and do high country rescue, his horse would be in good shape. So in 1954, he quit doing that, and the horses went back to the county seat. And we repurposed all of the stalls. So this was a horse stall, and then it became our laboratory. So in the 50s, there were no commercially made glazes, wheels, kilns, all those things had to be done from scratch. I still make my glazes from scratch, so these are the minerals that I use to make glazes.
I want to welcome you inside of Quyle Kiln, where I have been invited. My name is Robin Maudlin, and I'm a mosaic artist, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to do mosaics in Murphy's. And Pam has invited me to do mosaics inside this incredible historic room. And she's just been so incredibly gracious and open with being able to have fun with mosaics and to include some of the community in the projects in here. So we've been able to fill up spaces on these walls, and if you come to visit, you'll be able to see various mosaics that have been done by different people in the community, including me and including Pam, and all of these wonderful pieces we want to be shared with everyone. So at the confluence, we're going to be creating a garden, and we're in the creation of that garden now. Whether we're going to have a garden on one of these pillars, and these are some beautiful flowers that were made by Pam and Donna, and these will be mosaicked on the wall, filled in with mosaic pieces. There's many other beautiful pieces, beautiful flowers. And so we want to invite you to come and participate in the creation of this garden, this mosaic garden.
Hi, my name is Amanda Mall. I am a pottery teacher here at Quyle Kilns. Look forward to having you come visit us. This is one of my students, Bob Price. He is doing amazing work, and this is an example of his challenge that I gave them in this month, and that is to make a bird bath. And so this is a bath on top of the bottom. I think that he did an absolutely amazing job. Has this been fun for you, Bob?
Very fun project.
Very fun project, yeah.
We tried a lot of time, but
it did. We try to do new projects every month, and then sometimes we leave it up to the students to choose their projects. This is Vicki Goldman, and she is another one of our amazing students, potters. And what are you doing, Vicki?
I am working on a bird bath.
A bird bath?
Yes.
Was that the monthly challenge?
It was.
Fantastic.
Very excited to be
And
here.
can you show us exactly how it's going to work?
Hopefully, these two will fit.
Wow, look at that. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And then the bath will go on top. Woo, woo, very nice. Thank you so much. And this is Lisa Dickerson.
We need to see what the camera angle is.
And what are you working on, Lisa?
I have been underglazing a bowl that needs to go into the bisque. Just putting on a first coat so that I can send this in to the first firing.
Great.
And then I'll put a regular glaze on it and it'll be done. I'll send it into the regular kiln.
Looks like a nice little pasta bowl.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, we have lots of projects that happen here at Quyle Kilns in our pottery studio. We do raku firings, we do wheel throwing, hand sculpting. Whatever you dream up, we want to help you win. And during our clay confluence, which is what we're talking about today, we're going to be having demonstrations throughout the day. So you want to come and see those. I believe Lisa's going to be demonstrating something wonderful. I can't remember what at the moment.
Maybe glazing.
Maybe glazing.
Maybe.
And then we're also going to be having a pottery throwdown, which is a highlight of the day. We have 10 potters, or 10 people You don't have to be as proficient at the wheel. You're going to be blindfolded, and you're going to learn, and you're going to pull the clay up, and you have a 15-minute time limit to see how you do. So that's part of our Clay Confluence, and we look forward to you coming to join us.
We're really looking forward to our confluence. It's our 71st birthday, as we think of it. We plan on inviting all of the potters who've come through our program to come set up a booth. So we'll be doing show, sales, demonstrations, hands-on projects. We will have some food here, and then also it's the first concert for the Brice Station vineyards will be that Saturday evening. So you can come see our friends work, walk around our shops, and then join us at the concert on Saturday night.